All right, on today's episode, 7 NBA takes I need to get off my chest, starting with number one. We had some news over this past week. Brian Windhorst said Kevin Durant is in all likelihood going to be traded this summer. Mark Stein reported that the Wizards considered trading for Bradley Beal despite his no trade clause and his declining overall play. Devin Booker's the guy nobody really talks about here. Shams had said that the Suns intend to keep Devin Booker. My first take is this. Devin Booker needs to demand a trade. You're 28 years old, in the prime of your career. He'll be 29 next season. You can't be wasting these years in your prime if you're Devin Booker. If they're going to trade KD and get picks and some players back, if they are able to trade Bradley Beal, what are you going to do? Just sit there and rot in Phoenix if you're Devin Booker when you're still playing at this top 15, top 20 level? I think Booker would regret not asking for a trade otherwise. And you think about teams that could trade for him. Obviously, Houston, top of the list. They've inquired about Booker already. They have Phoenix's first-round picks. They make by far the most sense. Think about teams like the Spurs, pair him with Fox in the backcourt, with Victor Wembanyama. You could see them taking the leap. How about the Pistons? The Pistons, all the progress they've made this season, maybe they're a team that would want to flip some future picks and young players, consolidate them into Devin Booker, pair him with Cade Cunningham. And plus, Detroit, Michigan is home for Devin Booker. You see him rocking Detroit team attire sometimes. So who knows? Point is there's going to be options that put Devin Booker in a better position to get back to the NBA Finals than whatever Phoenix is going to be able to compile together flipping Kevin Durant this offseason. And so for Booker, he's not 30 years old yet. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He's got time to continue competing for championships. He'd regret it if he doesn't demand a trade. All right, number two. The tanking in the East is going to be so extreme, the NBA is going to change the rules with the play-in. We have the Bulls right now. They're absolute ass currently in the 10 seed. And then the Sixers, we get word that Joel Embiid is out for the remainder of the season. Philly wins a game on Saturday night against the Warriors. Quentin Grimes goes off for over 40 points. The Sixers look like the team that's going to fight at least. But I don't think the organization can allow that to happen. When their pick is top 6 protected, otherwise it goes to Oklahoma City in a draft where you have Cooper Flagg, among other top prospects that I'll talk about later in this podcast with Bryce Simon. You can't lose the opportunity to get one of those guys this year. And for Chicago, the team's horrible. This is a team right now, they get back their first round pick in their trade before the deadline. They're losing a lot of games. They just washed the Sixers, of course, after the All-Star break, beating them by 50 plus. They were 50 plus points up in the second half of that game, ended up winning by 32 points. The Bulls can't allow this winning to happen just to get the 10 seed. The Sixers can't allow this winning to happen just to get the 10 seed, only to lose, whether it's in the play-in or the playoffs, when this year's draft has such great awards. So I think, all of the talk at the time that the play-in was created, there was this idea that, hey, maybe you shouldn't allow teams under 500 to get the opportunity to get a play-in spot. I would expect, and I predict, that the NBA will have serious discussions later this year about making that change. And I think they should be doing that because Bulls 24-37 right now, Sixers a game back, 2 games back from Chicago. These teams nobody wants to see in the playoffs. Nobody wants to see them playing in the play-in for that matter either. It's just wasteful. So I do think the NBA is going to change that rule. For this next take, I'm going to bring on my friend Jared Weiss to talk about the Celtics, Cavs, and Nuggets. Now joining me from The Athletic and the New York Times is Jared Weiss. What's up, Jared?
Howdy, howdy.
We've known each other for 10 plus years now, working in sports media together. I don't remember the last time we've done a podcast together, though. So I look forward to doing this with you.
Maybe the Garden Report. Like it's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Doing the Garden Report. That was a long, long time ago. We were just babies in sports media. But let's talk about the Celtics, the defending champions. They've had an interesting weekend. They faced the Cavs on Friday, had a 25-point lead. Jason Tatum's like, get the hell out of here. They end up blowing that game, losing at 123-116 against the Cavs. They beat the Nuggets on Sunday, 110-103, missing 2 starters, Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. That is important to preface this conversation. But that game against Cleveland on Friday, I do think the people who are bullish on Cleveland as the favorite in the Eastern Conference, despite no KP, despite no Drew Holiday, that game does strengthen their argument for Cleveland with the way they closed that game in the fourth quarter. No Jared Allen out there at the end of the game. Evan Mobley as a 5. They played a small lineup as well late in that game with DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, Max Strus, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. The versatility in lineups that they have and the ability to fight through adversity coming back from down 25 in the first half, down over 10 points again in the third quarter. I feel like that strengthens the Cleveland argument, Jared. Would you agree with that?
I've been on the Cleveland argument this whole time. It's the Celtics have to prove that they can be healthy and execute to upend what Cleveland's been doing this year, because Cleveland's been borderline flawless. And you're right, the versatility is a huge thing. Cleveland can finish games in like 4 or 5 different ways very effectively, where they still have the upper hand. And adding Hunter now, where you just have kind of the perfect guy to play out of the corners, and I think his defense is still good enough that you can put him on the main guys and he'll be pretty serviceable. So, you know, with Boston, with Drew Holiday not being healthy, and we'll see what this finger injury means. You know, a lot of the time this injury is kind of a long spell on the sidelines, but it's his pinky finger, so maybe he ends up playing through it. But you saw at the end of that game, the Cavs went after Sam Hauser over and over and over again, and their guards were just able to get by him every time. And so it's easy to say the Celtics will be okay because they'll have Drew Holiday in there. They'll have Porzingis as their backstop. But we don't know if the Celtics are going to be healthy. They haven't been consistently healthy this year. And the Cavs showed that their offense, when you give them a lot of versatile players on the floor at the end of the game, they can be a real target pick and roll matchup nightmare.
And I think with Drew Holiday, I mean, let's say he gets back on the floor eventually, which he will. It's just a pinky finger, as you said, shooting only 34% from 3 on the year. He was over 40% last year. He was over 40% in his years with the Bucks as well. He's back down closer to those career averages this season for the Celtics. So if he's back, and if you have him defending Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland in those situations where you don't have the Sam Hauser attack point for the opponent, Cleveland, I think these teams are going to face off in these finals. Maybe Drew Holiday is that guy that teams are daring him to shoot, and maybe he becomes a weak point on offense. If the finger doesn't fully heal, if the numbers stay down, there's still concern there with Drew Holiday. And with Porzingis, you're right. Like, he's missed a lot of games this year, hasn't been quite peak KP. But do you think, how much with Boston, my impression, Jared, is that they're just playing it extra safe with KP this year, that they're just icing him as much as possible. He's out with an illness right now. Take a couple more days off. Like, we're not rushing you back. That's my impression when I talk to people in and around Boston and around the league, that this team is just coasting until the playoffs. And even then, they're still 43-18. They're still a dominant team. Is that accurate to say that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I spent a lot of January and February, just every time I talk to somebody in a front office in the NBA, be like, what do you think? Is Boston just kind of slow rolling this for the playoffs? And is Cleveland the favorite? And most of them were laughing. A lot of them were just like, Boston's the favorite still. You're going to see. They're going to flip a switch by the second round. And I buy into that for sure. I mean, you watched their defense earlier in this year, and they just were not bringing it. Like, it was pretty obvious. There was a bunch of guys that were not bringing it. And we know that this team turns it on. And we've seen that in these last few games that they've had against Cleveland and Denver, which were both great games. And, you know, you saw that intensity turn up, especially Jaylen Brown. You know, Jaylen Brown, I know he's dealing with a knee thing right now, and he even talked about that after that Denver game, that he's going to have to take a look at it and see maybe he needs to rest it for a little while. Who knows? But he is someone that after the All-Star break really starts to ramp up his intensity on both ends of the floor. We see every year he's probably their best player after the break every single year, and then he's pretty ferocious defensively when he gets into the postseason. So we're seeing some of these guys start to turn that on. I just don't think you can't fix this Drew Holiday issue for them, which is he was the guy that held everything together for them last year, because out of the corners, he shot like 60%. It was insane. So no matter what happened on a possession, there was always this endpoint they could get to where he was a dominant shooter. Then obviously defensively, he did all the stuff that he does.
And even offensively, Jared, they used him as a screener. He would roll. He'd be in the dunker spot. Never mind what he could do with the ball on his hands, but he was everywhere on offense, always involved in different ways.
He plays the four offensively for them, essentially. And then sometimes they turn him into a point guard for like a few second unit stints a game. But they need him to be super active on that end. And his whole thing is like you're talking about rolling through the middle, short roll playmaking, then he'll flash out to the corner, and then the defense forgets that he's out there and they swing it around and he gets the open three. And they're not getting a ton of that this year. It's just his shoulder was bothering him after the Olympics and it was never quite right coming into the year. Now the pinky thing on the right hand, that's a shooting hand. So, he's had all these little knocks, and Drew Holiday is the kind of guy that you trust will still be impactful in the postseason, even if he's dealing with these issues. But what made them deadly was they were just, not only were they able to outshoot teams quality wise, but volume wise as well. And in that Cleveland game, both teams shot 17 for 39. And they just aren't getting that 3-point volume advantage that they were getting beforehand.
Oh, and Cleveland obviously ramped up their 3-point volume significantly this season under Kenny Atkinson as their head coach, who, in my opinion, I think should be the coach of the year, considering the way he's transformed that team by far, coach of the year. And with Cleveland, I mentioned the lineups earlier. Jared Allen not playing late in the fourth quarter, despite having a really good game overall. Evan Mobley rested, I think, from the 4-minute mark to around the 2-minute mark when they played that super small lineup. Even with the small lineup, though, I say it's small because of Garland and Mitchell, but you have DeAndre Hunter, 6'8", 6'9" out there. This was the first matchup between Cleveland and Boston in which DeAndre Hunter was active following the trade deadline. How have you seen Hunter change the complexion of this Cavs team with what he could be? He scores 32 points on Sunday, by the way, against the Blazers. More of a 3-and-D guy in the Boston matchup, but how does Hunter change this Cavaliers team and what they can be in the postseason?
I think the big difference between what Hunter brings and what Caris LeVert brought, and I think LeVert was having a good year, is he's just a guy that not only can you plug and play him in different lineup combinations, but he's a pretty quick and reliable decision maker when he's playing off the ball on the wings. That when you swing it to him, he's going to give you quick spot up, or he's going to hit the lane really quickly and make good decisions. And he's just not somebody who's looking to kind of impose himself in the game. He kind of finds his way into the game. And that's really important for this team that has such great harmony between their starting guards and then Ty Jerome coming in there. And he's obviously he's had a great year. And so I think they needed to maybe pare down who their creators were and who are their kind of their fulcrums in their offense, because their offense is super random. It's complete read and react at a very, very high level. One of the most open-minded, random read and react offenses we've seen. And I think it was important that the guys that are kind of improvising and aren't just fitting in directly into the channels that they're trying to create, they need to limit that so that everybody's on the same page. And I think Hunter just allows them to do that a little bit more effectively. And just also he has these moments where he gets so hot from three. And he has all these games where, that game he went 3 for 3 from deep. Obviously, when he needed to step up, he was huge and had 30 points for them in the next game. So, I don't think Hunter is a drastic change, and it's not like they've made a huge leap in the quality of player that they've gotten, but I think he's kind of the ideal fit for this team and is kind of the prototype late season add-on that you see these championship teams have over the years.
One of the arguments people have for Boston over Cleveland is that they're going to be attacking Mitchell and Garland over and over in the postseason, two smaller guards. Now, fair, you're going to be attacking them. We've seen Boston do that during the season, especially with Garland early on, but Mitchell has been an issue for the Celtics this year. 35 points in one game, 35 points in another, 31 in another, and then 41 on Friday, where he was just absolutely unstoppable. Of course, he's targeting Sam Hauser in a lot of those situations, but Mitchell has scored against everybody and anybody on the Celtics side of things this season. With Mitchell playing at this level, do you think that argument about Boston, like Joe Mazzulla calls it, targeting the seals, right? That's the way he kind of frames it. Do you think that argument is a little bit weaker when, Boston doesn't have an answer for Mitchell necessarily either?
Sure. I mean, if you want to go tit for tat, Cleveland can do it. And what makes Mitchell great is he tends to get himself going in games with pull-up threes. you'll see, I think in that game early on, I was kind of waiting for him. I'm like, when's the moment? He usually has one in the first half. And he'll just have this kind of like this 2-minute series where he'll come down, they'll run a high pick and roll for him, and he'll pull up so early in the action that the defense is just not ready for it. And he's not on balance, it's far away, and he just is like just snapping the net. And that's what makes them great. And that's what the great star players do, is they have a way to get going in the middle of a game where you don't know exactly where and how it's coming, but you kind of know what he wants. And he gets it every time against the Celtics. And I think part of that is he just knows the Celtics' coverages pretty well. And he knows those pockets of the game where he's going to be able to get a clean release over a screen and boom, he's going to launch. And so that means the Celtics, if they're going to play some of these bigs that they have, like Kornet, who is someone who they've gotten a lot of minutes for, they might have to start switching earlier in the game when they don't want to. And then obviously you give Mitchell space against somebody like Luke Kornet, he's going to get to where he wants. And that's, he got to the line 11 times in that game. So, Boston, if they're not fully healthy, they have some coverage decisions they have to make against Mitchell. And that's what makes Cleveland so good, is like they have their system, but they also just they can do target stuff. And I don't think that if the Celtics are fully healthy, I don't think they're going to use Kornet so much. I think they'll stick with an 8-man rotation with Horford.
They better not.
But who knows? With Porzingis, they have to manage his health. We saw in the playoffs last year, he got hurt really early. So they probably need to use a 9-man rotation just to keep Porzingis' minutes down. And by the time they get to Cleveland, which is going to be in the conference finals.
Is this why you're leaning Cleveland, Jared? Because of the Porzingis factor?
Yeah, it's. I think we've just seen it time and time again that you just don't know with Porzingis. And so I think if these teams are fully healthy, I would give the edge to the Celtics. Even if Drew Holiday isn't 100%, let's say Drew's 85% and his shooting is solid but not great, I would probably lean towards the Celtics, because I know the Celtics have another gear to hit here. And we know that they finally have figured things out with Porzingis out there. They just have to keep him out there. But as of now, there's not reason to believe, based on recent history and how things are currently going, that Boston is going to have the health advantage.
So you're picking Cleveland in a series today?
Right now, I'd pick Cleveland in 7.
I get the concerns with KP. I get the concerns with Drew Holiday, but I think those guys are going to be back. I'm still picking the Celtics in a series against the Cavs today.
Nah. I think Cleveland's too good now. I just think they didn't have a beast like this that they were going against last year. And what makes Cleveland nice is that even though they're different than the Celtics in their composition, their principles are very similar. They can fight fire with fire. The Celtics were doing something last year with their read and react versatility that not really any other team in the league was doing, but the league has caught up. And something the Celtics struggled with earlier this year was the league figured them out, I think, a little earlier than they were prepared for. And so they've been having to reconfigure and obviously just get their lineups back intact and everything. And so, it's been a journey for the Celtics. While the Cavs have had their identity, it's been working, it's been very consistent. And so I think the Celtics are at a point where they don't need to be in lockstep the entire season to figure it out. That's why this is really neck and neck. But I always go for the team that doesn't have to figure it out. And the Celtics, as good as they are, they still have to figure some things out.
Celtics beat the Nuggets on Sunday, 110-103. Do you have any belief in Denver as a serious final start? I had them 4th on my power rankings. They've since dropped some games. Some more concern with them recently as their strength of opponent has heightened. What do you think about Denver's finals chances, Jared?
I mean, they're good. Like OKC has just been pretty flawless this year, and they're kind of getting everybody back, and they just seem insurmountable. But, in that game, Jokic tweaked his ankle or something at the very beginning, and he downplayed it and joked that he's been limping for 14 years, so it's nothing new for him. But he wasn't quite himself in that game. But we're seeing Jamal Murray is certainly back to pretty much being the offensive force that we're used to him being. Christian Brown has given them enough. I think their defense, I don't know about the OKC matchup, but I think overall, their defensive rotations are looking good enough, especially if they have Aaron Gordon fully back, that their scheme, I think, will work in the postseason. So I don't look at Denver as it's not like the Boston Cleveland situation where it's a real coin toss here. Like OKC is the favorite, and who the hell knows with the Lakers now? If the Lakers keep defending this way, certainly you got to give them that plausibility like Denver. But the Nuggets are positioning themselves well now with their execution that if they're fully healthy, you shouldn't write them off as a contender, even if you're not writing them on as a contender.
I think with Denver, Aaron Gordon, obviously he misses that game on Sunday. You have Christian Brown playing 47 minutes in the game. I know Zeke Naji had 4 fouls, and it wasn't his best game recently, but only 8 minutes for Zeke Naji, who's been great so far. Jalen Pickett, only 8 minutes. Really good in those 8 minutes. He's had great spurts. Michael Malone confuses me because Malone has these stretches where he's empowering some of these young guys and playing them for minutes. And then we see DeAndre Jordan out there. It's just strange to me how Malone has these rotations where guys perform well. Friday against Detroit, we see Zeke Naji out there for heavier minutes. We see him starting in that game. He's been excellent so far. We see minutes with some of these young guys, Jalen Pickett in that game too. And then you just don't play him. It's just strange to me, the lack of consistency with that Denver rotation. I know it's tough when guys are in and out of the lineup, but I do wish Malone would play Naji more consistently with how well he's played defensively and well with Jokic specifically. I wish we would see Jalen Pickett more consistently. And I know these guys aren't the big needle movers. That's Aaron Gordon. That's Jokic. That's these guys. But I think it's important to have those weapons out there, especially when we see teams are beginning to just sag off of Russ completely. He's getting playoff treatment, and he's launching some shots that he shouldn't take. Malone needs to have those young guys available if things aren't working with one of your veterans, whether it's Gordon due to injury or whether it's due to performance with a guy like Russ, if things do fall off. He needs to have those weapons out there to support Jokic.
Yeah, in that game against Boston, I think that like Jordan, for instance, was in there to deal with Kata because Kata was having a good game, and they wanted to try.
You don't need DeAndre Jordan. We
don't
need to see DeAndre. You need to deal with Kata.
Listen, man, if a guy's going, a guy's going. It doesn't matter.
Here.
We're talking about the 10th man. We're talking about the 10th man here. Let's not lose the plot. The plot here is a Russell Westbrook open threes. And the Celtics were blowing him kisses when he was wide open in the corner. And the problem here is, and I can't believe it, I'm saying this, I have really loved watching Russell Westbrook play for this team this year. And I have not. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I enjoyed watching him play, but it's been a long time, that's for sure.
Never.
In that game, what drives me crazy, and this is what always drove me crazy about Russ, is he gets a wide open three. He, I think, airballs it from the corner, and he's hanging his hand in the corner like, why didn't that go in? Because you're Russ. Because your jump shot has always been so out of rhythm that you miss the rim in a way that no other player of your caliber ever does. And so because of that, he's not getting back in transition defense. He's frustrated. He's confused. He's not locked in. And like, Russ has just got to see these wide open threes as I'm either driving in and taking a baseline floater from 15, or I'm driving in and I'm trying to draw a ton of contact and try to kick it out. Like, he can't be taking these gifts that they're giving him, and then if he misses it, look like he's surprised. Like, bro, you know what's going on. You know you can't shoot. I think he knows. I would hope he knows, but there's no evidence to suggest that he does know. And at some point, Russ, I hopefully will have the self-awareness to look at this and be like, they want me so badly to take the shot. I know that I miss the shot all the time. Maybe I shouldn't take this shot. Maybe I should live with the idea, because coaches are always like, we got to give him 100% confidence. We believe in him. At this point of his life, like, just get over it and just make a play that gives you a higher chance of succeeding and keeps the offense flowing and doesn't make the defense feel like they have something figured out. And this stuff happens in the playoffs. The Nuggets are not going to win. They're not going to win if this keeps happening in the playoffs. And it's really on Russ to make that decision, to recognize I'm not going to hit the shot most of the time. There's something else I can do here.
I mean, it's a concern. Like I said, I had them at 4 on my championship power rankings. Since then, we've seen the Lakers, double, triple Jokic, helping off of non-shooters, fronting Jokic. We've seen the Bucks with Giannis at not 100%. Giannis, I think, is like 85% right now, completely shred their defense. And then we see the Celtics without 2 of their starters beat them on Sunday. Those are some tough losses for the Nuggets in the last two weeks now. So with Denver, I still think they're a championship contender, but not of a top 1 or top 2 tier. But It's too bad. I still think they have a chance, but they need to figure out those rotations. Jared, thanks for joining me today, man. I appreciate it.
It's always fun to be with you.
And now joining me once again is Legend of Winning. What's up, Lo? How you doing?
What up, KLC? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Probably not as great as you. You're probably on a permanent high right now with the Lakers, who just forgot how to lose. They just can't stop winning. That's all they can do right now. They're the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And I want to talk about the Luka impact on LeBron James, just his overall Lakers run right now. But how are you feeling, though, being the 2 seed? You feeling happy?
It feels amazing, man. We are 2 terrible losses away from being, I think, on like a 15-game winning streak against the Jazz and Hornets. But, bro, the type of run the Lakers are on right now is actually very impressive. I know for a fact they're like a top 3 defense over the past like 10 games, 10, 15 games. And I think that's probably the biggest surprise because, of course, a lot of that portion is not only without Anthony Davis, but even before the trade, AD wasn't playing. So that's probably been the biggest revelation. But, of course, I mean, adding Luka to any team, I mean, that's going to really change a lot of things for a lot of people. So, yeah, it's been great, man. It's been great.
Well, I think what we're seeing from the Lakers, obviously there's more challenges ahead for them. They have some tougher games coming up. I mean, they've had some big wins as well. 2 wins over the Clippers over the weekend on Friday and Sunday, both impressive wins where they were dominant on defense for stretches again. I think the Lakers are playing themselves into the fact that they are the West team most likely to knock off Oklahoma City. That's one of the thoughts watching them. And it's largely because of the defense. They've been an elite defense going back to, like you said, pre-Luka trade when AD was out injured. They've been excellent defensively. But also the Luka impact on LeBron James, the way in which we've seen LeBron's energy on the defensive end, rotation, scramble mode, deflecting a lob pass to Zubats on Sunday. The activity level from him is on another level defensively. That's part of the reason why the Lakers have been better. But also offensively with LeBron James, he is just playing differently here. Usage way down behind Luka, behind Reeves when the 3 of them are in the lineup. And efficiency-wise, with Luka on the floor, LeBron James is posting a 68.4 true shooting percentage. With Luka off the floor throughout the entire season, still dominant, 60.6 true shooting percentage. His assist way down because his usage is way down. And we're seeing him just take more spot-up opportunities. We're seeing those touchdown passes in transition as well. It's been interesting to see LeBron adapt to Luka here in the situation, though.
Yeah, and I think obviously for most of like LeBron's career, the idea, especially towards the tail end, has been who is that player that LeBron can trust to put the ball in your hands, right? And take it out of his so he can be a bit more off-ball oriented. And to be fair to LeBron, I think that this is going to be a reoccurring theme as we get towards the tail end of this season. A lot of these things with LeBron was effective before Luka got on the team. LeBron did take a bit of a step back in the beginning part of the season when the offense was more centered around Anthony Davis and then Reeves emerging. And he's slowly accepted that role. But of course, with Luka on the floor, it's just ramping up to a whole nother gear several times. And probably the first time in LeBron's career, I'm watching him get wide open looks because someone else is on the floor. That may have been the first time probably since D. Wade years, and maybe not as often as Wade, but just quality looks. I think he's one of the best spot-up shooters in the NBA. I think he's like above 40% of his threes on spot-up threes. And he's getting quality looks, touchdown passes, in transition, easy looks, which again, as you said, kind of just translates into much more energy being given on the other side of the floor. So it's been amazing.
I mean, he has received 8 touchdown passes from Luka in 8 games. It's 1 a game. And he had 2 of them again on Sunday where like you just see LeBron racing up the floor knowing Luka's going to feed him. And the spot-up shooting, I looked at the numbers on this. With Luka on the floor per 36 minutes, LeBron is attempting 12 catch-and-shoot threes.
That's crazy.
That's nuts, right?
Nuts.
And for a reference over the course of the season, without Luka on the floor, it's 2.8 spot-up threes per 36 minutes.
That's
so,
crazy. That's crazy.
That's nuts. Like 4 times as many with Luka on the floor. And the assists have been cut in half pretty much. I looked up the numbers on this new website, Data Baller. It's like really good for different types of stats. And they have per 75 possessions, LeBron is averaging 9.5 assists per 75 without Luka. And then with Luka, 4.9 assists per 75 possessions. So it's been cut basically in half the usage is just way down. And seeing LeBron play this way, I mean, he said it game one. He's like, he did the old Kevin Love line, don't fit in, fit out, be you, right? And it's been that with LeBron taking on this new shape. And it goes to show he's been an elite shooter off the catch for now two plus years. It goes to show all that work has led to him being this guy who can be a number 2 behind Luka. And this is with Luka not even being his dominant as hell so far. Sunday, it was definitely the best version of him, though.
Yeah, and I that's probably the biggest takeaway is that, a lot of what Luka is doing early on, the shots weren't falling. And so, that was a bit understandable at times because he was still kind of working himself into shape. But the playmaking that Luka provides, you tend to forget like the tier that he's in alongside like a Jokic and even LeBron as well. But like that tier of just being able to just generate quality looks for literally everyone on the floor. Not only LeBron, Vando's getting wide open threes. DFS is, like he said, he was butt naked open for many open looks as well. In the past couple of games, they just start knocking them down a little bit more. So yeah, everything is just extraordinarily easy for LeBron. So I think LeBron is benefiting in ways in which it's about time because he's at that point in his career where I do think he needs to tone it down a little bit with some of his usage, his responsibility, and allow somebody else to just create opportunities for him.
In that game on Sunday, the Clippers scored at the 7:35 mark of the second quarter and didn't score again until the 11:24 mark of the third quarter. 8+ minutes with the Lakers defense just clamping up, shutting down absolutely everything. What is it about this Lakers defense that feels different to you compared to earlier in the season when there are stretches where they're like bottom 10 in defensive rating despite having AD out there at the time?
Well, I think a lot of it just has to do with coaching. I don't want to be that guy, but I'll be that guy. JJ Redick is like a far superior coach than Darvin Ham. I thought it was ludicrous that we were having those conversations early on in the season. But as time progressed, he's consistently gotten better. The early stages of the year, part of the reason why the Lakers struggled mightily had a lot to just do with personnel. They were running heavy rotations with Dalton connecting D'Angelo Russell, especially on weak side help, trying to rotate over and tag. That's just not it. But also, when you have AD, I think the strength of Anthony Davis is that he can kind of do a little bit of everything. He can kind of roam, he can switch, he can defend on the perimeter for someone his size at least, and a rim protector. But also, I think that kind of hurts you when you don't have the proper defensive pieces, not only because you're taxing AD a lot and he wasn't 100% healthy, but also it just kind of lends you to be more switch heavy, which this team just didn't have the personnel to do so. And so as the year progressed, and I vividly remember after that terrible game against Miami, JJ Redick and the coaching staff, it just feels as if like they've gone at a different approach. The first time I really noticed it was against the Boston Celtics, where we were switching a little bit more, but players like Max and Rui, they were fronting and fighting for positioning with Kristaps Porzingis. And then at that point, we were using AD as backline help a little bit and roaming a little bit more. That scheme has carried over, and I think obviously the most exaggerated version of that was against the Denver Nuggets not too long ago when we matched it up against them and we won pretty confidently. And from there, I think that's been the ongoing scheme, experimenting with way more zones, doing way much better job with help and rotating and kind of just strategically leaving certain players open. Last night, Chris Dunn was just, they decided not to defend him. Same thing with the Denver Nuggets. They said, hey, Russ, Aaron Gordon, y'all try to beat us, and then we'll just kind of go out there and defend who we need to defend. And from there, again, just better zone, better helping, better rotating, and just more responsibility from everyone else instead of just overly depending on one player in Anthony Davis.
And it's different game plans, too. Like you said, like you face a unique player like Jokic, they're fronting, doubling, sometimes tripling. It's different game plans for specific opponents, and the players are executing at a high level. And I think, you said it with the switching, the versatility, that resembles the personnel with what you're able to do, because even though Jackson Hayes is the Lakers starting center, even though they don't have a traditional 5, a typical 5 on their team, they're still big. Like they play lineups where it's Jackson Hayes, Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Luka. And it's like, dude, they're bigger across 1 through 4, even if they're smaller at the 5. That's still a massive lineup, 1 through 5. When Luka at 6'6" is your smallest guy on the floor, That team's big. They can be versatile. They can play different schemes. And they have a bunch of dogs on that defensive side as well. Vanderbilt, DFS, and LeBron's playing like it too. And Hayes at least brings energy.
Yeah. And Hayes, I'm a bit split on him because boy, the IQ on him is not as high as I think it should be. But in theory, he should be there. But yeah, I agree with the height and size, but I also just believe it has way more to just do with schematically what this team looks like. I've seen what they look like early this year and really watched them the 2 years prior. I just believe that JJ Redick kind of stepping in with that coaching staff and establishing, hey, we just need to give better effort. And he spoke about this in one of the post-game interviews where he's like, effort is like something that I've quickly learned has been the difference maker. If you give just better effort, better communication, you're going to yield better results. And that's something that has been picked up on very quickly. But you're right, though, like the amount of size on this team, despite the fact that there is no center, there's still size across the board. Many times, especially now, post-trade, Reeves is like really the smallest player that's being played. Maybe some minutes of Gabe from time to time, but Reeves is really the smallest player that gets played. But even before that, like even when Max was switching on bigger players, he gave effort to fight over, to make sure that he didn't give up too much positioning. Rui has gotten significantly better at that as well. I think he's done a great job over the years, kind of dealing with the responsibility of being the initial defender on Jokic with AD backline help. He's kind of carried over a lot of that over the years. But to me, as someone who's been very critical of LeBron over the past 2 years, the energy that Bron is giving now, I have not seen out of him in, I believe, in years. It's been a very, very long time that I've seen stretches of really great effort defensively from LeBron. And I think that also was a significant difference from where we were earlier this season and, of course, the 2 years prior.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, I think LeBron's defensive impact right now, it is like exhibit A of how effort is the driving force behind defensive production. If you give effort, you can be a plus defender. If you don't give effort, you're going to get destroyed or just be a negative a lot of the time. But LeBron's difference with the effort and energy and focus that he's putting out there right now, he looks like I mean, I hate to even say the name Draymond, but like the versatility flying around, he has that in him if he wants to embrace being that. And in moments, he can be that. So, I mean, and that's all because of effort. He has the mind, he has the skill, he has the size, but effort is what makes it happen.
And I think, I think some of that comes with, obviously, Luka. A lot of it also comes with just better personnel. And, you know, you kind of question, like, hey, man, you're getting up there in age, and so I kind of get it. You know, you don't have necessarily the ability to kind of hold your own defensively. But at times, I just do believe that there was better effort that could have been shown. But now it's there. He's blowing up plays back line. He's giving better help. He's fronting just as well. They're scram switching a lot more than they did in earlier in the season. And I do believe that it's a bit more inspiring to see that from LeBron than in years prior. And so a lot of people kind of just pick up on that surrounds him. But also, again, I believe, man, when you're playing with like a maniac like Vandal on the floor, that also is like very inspiring as well. DFS is out there. And again, there's just more responsible defenders now than there was in the early part of the season. Even before the trade, spending the time to develop Max Christie was also a big part of this as well. Max developed into a quality POA, again, was fighting over not only screens, but fighting to not give up position when they did switch on a bigger player. So overall, yeah, the effort level has been different, but the communication is also better. And just schematically, they know what they're doing on the floor. Way too many times I saw like Rui not know what he was doing on the floor. Now it seems way more direct, concise, directed. And I think that's something that is, again, different from what we were like last year in the beginning of this season.
Well, that's because they hired a podcaster. He's good at communicating.
Hey, man, that's what I'm talking about, man. Shout out to JJ Redick, man. Oh, my goodness. It's a breath of fresh air. I'm so happy we're done having those conversations with him and Darvin Ham. I'm happy because, boy, that right there was taking years off my life. It was ridiculous.
I mean, the dude's been awesome. And it feels like he's getting better over the course of the years as a coach, because coaches are going to get better too. This happened with Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics. I thought Mazzulla was a bust hire after Udoka. He got better. And credit to coaches who continue improving as well. And some don't improve, like Darvin Ham didn't with his first time as a head coach opportunity. Do you let's say tomorrow the Lakers and Thunder start a 7-game series. Are you picking the Thunder in that series?
That's tough. I would still pick the Thunder because they are performing at a historic level. I think that we shouldn't take that lightly. I'm not going to pull a. Can I say people's names on here, or can we just go on the floor?
You can say anybody's name.
I'm not going to pull a Shannon Sharp and then just say Lakers in 5 for no reason. But I think that, if I'm not mistaken, they have the best net rating in NBA history. I don't know if that's still the case, but for a good portion of the season, OKC had the best net rating, defensively performing at historic heights. Now, recently that's come down a little bit.
It's like best defensive rating relative to the league average.
Relative.
Yes.
Relative. Yes. But in short though, no, because I know for a fact when Hardenstein and Chet are out there, that's going to be very difficult to kind of just maneuver and operate around. And then they just have endless amount of perimeter quality defensive players that give a lot of effort, that really aggravate a lot of what players are trying to do in terms of ball handling skills. To be fair, it's very difficult to kind of get under the skin of Luka and LeBron to kind of adjust and alter what they're doing because they've seen a lot of the coverages that you can kind of throw at them. It does concern me with Reeves, though, because I don't think he's ever really been held to that tier. Normally, in most situations, you don't have a team that has enough defenders to throw at a LeBron and a Luka and then a Reeves, but they are that team. They can do that. And then on the other side of the floor, guarding Shea is going to be tough.
Well, I mean, guarding Shea is tough for everybody. He's might win MVP. He probably will win MVP. Right now, I'd have him number 1 on my MVP ballot. But the Lakers have Vando. They have DFS. They have a ton of guys and size and length and versatility to at least throw at him. And maybe you're throwing 2 at him sometimes and forcing others to beat you. OKC, they're an average 3-point shooting team. Jalen Williams has a dominant game on Sunday, 40-plus points, but he needs to prove it in a postseason series over the course of time. So with OKC, look, I'd pick them too. I would pick OKC. But I don't think they're necessarily unbeatable.
You're trying to convince me. You're trying to convince me right now.
I'm just saying.
Last time I was here, people done clipped up all my takes and then held it over my head for damn near half a season.
And you ended up being right for some of them.
Yeah, I was right for a good portion of them. To be fair, as great as OKC is, there is
Kings fans will come at you no matter what you say. I've been right about the Kings for 3 years, and they still come at me. I'm like, what was I wrong about?
That is true. Yeah, them King fans, but it's gonna be a very, very long couple of years. I know Zach LaVine ain't really saving much is going on over there, but yeah, you're right. There's a formula with OKC to beat them. I don't think they're invincible because that 3-point shooting isn't really there. J-Dub as a second offensive option, he hasn't really ascended in which I thought he was going to. However, I do believe that's probably going to be more Chet when he's 100% healthy, and that kind of brings in a lot more dynamic into their offense.
Options.
They have a lot of options. But there is a world where, you get in a series and Lou Dort, in the streets, we call them fake shooters. I don't know how real of 40% of Lou Dort is that. I don't know if that's real or not. He may be a fake shooter. Isaiah Joe, Wiggins, who knows if they're real shooters or not. I know for a fact Alex Caruso, he has tendencies of being a fake shooter. So the 3-point shooting is going to come and go. And then when you're dealing with a series where, again, there's going to be a lot of rotating, a lot of helping, a lot of kind of just, throwing multiple bodies in a zone. Maybe you can get away with a few games in which you can just solely win off of the fact that Lou Dort shoots them out of the game from 3. He can't make the shots. But to do that for a 7-game series is where it gets a little bit more difficult to believe that it's plausible. And that's where I kind of just... OKC he's going to be very, very difficult to beat in a 7-game series. I just don't think the Lakers have the personnel to do so.
With the Clippers, those 2 losses they had against the Lakers over the weekend, James Harden this year, I mean, damn, 5 of 22 on Friday against the Lakers, 4 of 14 on Sunday. This season, in the 4 games against the Lakers, he's averaging 14.8 points, 7 of 19 in the first game, 2 of 12 in the second game. As I said, 5 of 22 on Friday, 4 of 14 on Sunday. 3.8 turnovers to 4.5 makes per game, nearly as many turnovers as he has made shots. Lakers defense, all the length and versatility seems to bother him. James Harden this season, as a whole, against lengthy, quick, higher-end defensive players. I know he's had a great year as a playmaker. I know he's been the reason why the Clippers are still a top 8 seed in the Western Conference, but damn, like it does go to show like the decline with him where he just can't create the same way he could before.
At first I thought it was going to bounce back a little bit because I was hesitant with the criticism with the accuracy because I just thought, hey, Kawhi's not there yet. When he gets there, it kind of alleviates the responsibility because I think both him and Norman were doing things in which they really and truly should not have been doing. Same with Zoo. But I lean more like the conversation with Kawhi because, I mean, 35-year-old James Harden, who put a lot of miles in his body over the years, of course, like even in the last 13, I'm looking at it right now, he's shooting 35% from the field and below 30% from behind the arc.
Has not ticked up.
Yeah, it hasn't ticked up. But I think a lot of that still has to do with the fact that Kawhi's production also hasn't got to the point where we needed to be. Last night against the Lakers, he had a much better outing. I think he kind of took advantage.
He was good.
Yeah. But I've watched them occasionally, and Kawhi he's not moving the same. He looks very stiff still. He doesn't still look 100%, and he'll have games in which it's very Paul George-esque. And I think the idea was to sit him out and kind of prepare him for postseason play. We're about, a month and a half or two removed from the postseason beginning, and he still does not look that way. And I think that also kind of compounds with more responsibility that James has to endure during moments in which he probably shouldn't have to. He should probably be more settled into more of a playmaking role and allowing these other play finishers around him to kind of thrive, such as a Norman and a Zoo, and even at times Kawhi. But he's having to pick up more responsibility that I just don't think that he is really capable of handling throughout an entire season. That may be like a very optimistic lens of James Harden, but also like he's 35. So I don't really expect much out of Harden. I think they've exceeded and really maxed out who Harden has been this season. It just so happens to be a very inefficient version of who he has been. But again, he's 35, so I don't really,
he's older. It's understandable that your efficiency declines. I mean, he was, one of the greatest foul magnets in the NBA, one of the greatest at-room finishers, and that was such a pivotal part of his play, in part because he was an explosive finisher. He had one of the quickest first steps in the league, and then when you slow down, you just can't get to the basket the same way before. I think to your point, I mean, to tie this to LeBron taking, what was my stat, 12 catch and shoot threes per 36 minutes with Luka on the floor. Harden on the season, he's still ball dominant player. He takes only 1.6 catch and shoot threes per game to 6.9 pull up threes per game. And he's over 40% again. He's almost always over 40% on catch and shoot threes, basically every single season of his career. It's just, he's been such a dominant on ball presence. He doesn't, it doesn't make sense to have him off the ball. But I do think we're at a stage of his career where he would benefit from just doing more of that. And I know for a fact the Clippers coaching staff prior to this season, mostly last season, has really encouraged him to be more willing to just jack threes off the catch when those opportunities present themselves. He just doesn't feel confident doing it despite the numbers, despite the success he has actually doing it. But I think moving forward for him, whether it's with the Clippers or if they blow things up, like he's got to be willing to adapt there because the efficiency dropping off ball, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to lead to championship basketball or high-level basketball deep into the playoffs. It's just going to lead to like moderate regular season success, and that's about it.
Well, they got to blow it up. I don't know.
That's my thought. They got to blow it up, even though they don't have any of their own picks until 2030. They have to.
They have to blow it up. And if I'm not mistaken, actually, I can double check, but I think like this year's the last guaranteed year of his contract. Next year is a player option.
Player option for Harden, yeah. So he could leave this summer if he wanted to.
He really could. I mean, $36 million on the table, so it's James Harden. Who knows what he may do with it? But I agree. Wherever he does or wherever he goes, it has to be in a much smaller role and responsibility. He cannot go out there and be this player that he is. But it took Russ a couple of years to kind of develop into where he's at right now with Denver. And even in that scenario, I think that's like a very uniquely structured situation for Russ that really maximized whatever's left in the tank with him before he retires. James is going to, I said this last time, people got upset at me, but I mean, effectively, we are talking about if he is not your third or fourth option in the starting five in terms of a scorer and just primarily as a playmaker and kind of just setting people up. I mean, at this point, we're talking about what may be coming off of the bench in some capacity to kind of give you that scoring punch. Again, I don't think that it has to be to the extent of like what I was maybe saying about DeMar DeRozan or anything like that. But I do believe that like...
Yo, six-man James Harden would be fun, though.
I agree. I think coming off the bench, just bullying and abusing bad or inexperienced defenders on opposing teams' bench, he will look amazing. Like I think that it is a great role for him. I mean that very seriously too. I'm not.
Can you imagine him trying to deflate his ego though, doing that?
No, I don't. But I do think though that like I think there's a certain point in everyone's life where like reality just hits you and it's like, what am I going to do? Right? Like, am I going to go out like this, or am I going to try to pivot and restructure myself? I think that Harden's game also it's very well adaptable to what a lot of teams may need off their bench as well anyway. So it's not as if like anybody will be asking to do much of anything different.
He's got to catch and shoot, Lo. That's what he's got to do.
Yeah.
He's got to be willing to give up the ball and be a dominant guy off the ball, more like he was when he was a young player prior to all the MVPs, prior to all the individual success. He was a good spot-up shooter. He would run off of screens, pin down set for him by Nick Collison or Kendrick Perkins, and he would launch threes off the catch. He was a cutter off the ball. He was a lob guy early in his career, which he's not anymore. But Harden did those things when he was a young guy. And so when you're an old guy, maybe you have to tap back into some of that in order to play championship-level basketball. That's what it needs to be with him, because I think, you mentioned Norm Powell earlier. He plays 9 minutes, his first game back from a knee injury. Now he's a hamstring issue. Kawhi having his best game. This Clippers team isn't going anywhere when it comes to championship level expectations for them. I don't see it. I think there was a slim chance at one point. At this point, I would eliminate their chances because like you, I was hoping Harden's efficiency would go up with Kawhi, but it just hasn't at all. And so for them moving forward, they get so many, Eubanks playing minutes off their bench.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
A shell of Bogdan Bogdanović too. He's had a horrible year going back to with Atlanta. Man, it's
I do think though, I don't know if, I think he put himself in a situation to give himself an out if things didn't work out this season and, take your player option and kind of just figure out what's going on. However, I think the one thing I learned from the offseason was just the new CBA and how tricky it is for a lot of teams to kind of add talent like James Harden to their roster, in particular with the amount of money he's making. A lot of teams are just hesitant to commit to someone making 36 or even 20 million if he decides to take a pay cut somewhere else to go play for that team. And so even as I kind of casually look across the league, there's teams that would thrive with him starting or coming off their bench, but at what cost? Like, what is a price point in which you're willing to pay a James Harden to do those things at his age without really compromising a lot of what you already have financially and your flexibility, but also still adding a lot to what you may need offensively. And also, obviously, James putting himself in a situation where he can, win at a very, very high level. So it kind of just depends on what he wants to do, because I think that's probably the biggest hurdle that he would have to overcome is that if I really do want to win a championship, what type of pay cut that I would have to take. And I do think it would be a pretty steep one if they decide to go in that direction. But I think the Clippers, I don't really think it should be up to Harden. I think the Clippers should just look themselves in the mirror and be like, yeah, it's done. I think the same thing that's probably going to happen to the Suns as well in the offseason. It's done. It's over. We've ran our course. We need to just move in a different direction. We've already committed way too much draft capital to this experiment that has completely failed. So we just need to move somewhere else and try to get what we can in return and reassess what we need to do moving forward, because the longer they wait, the worse it's going to be. You're going to get even less in return, if any, if Harden comes back, and you're certainly going to get less in return for Kawhi, who's making $50+ million beyond this season. So it's going to be tough. Real tough, actually.
That is the tough thing, because even if you say, hey, let's blow it up, you got Harden with a player option, Kawhi who barely plays and is a shell of himself sometimes he looks like full Kawhi Leonard. We haven't quite seen that yet this year. What is the return actually going to be? So they might actually just be stuck And that's the scary part with their situation not having any of their first round picks until 2030. But Lo, thanks for joining me today, man. I appreciate it.
Whoa. I thought we were doing something a little longer here, but you're not going to be able to leave without addressing some of these comments.
What's this?
the people want to know, and I want to know, the terrible take you had about All-Star Weekend, in particular the dunk contest. Mac McClung,
G-Leaguer?
Mac McClung jumping over a car and you rushing to Twitter to complain about a man jumping over a car.
I just think Mac McClung, a G-Leaguer, competing in the NBA dunk contest is a reflection of the overall issues about that
you're
weekend.
One of these people. You're one of them, man. You're one of them.
What? That I don't enjoy All-Star Weekend?
Let's be clear.
Sunday, barely you saw any basketball.
Yeah, that was bad.
Okay, so we agree there.
Yeah. But why is someone jumping over a car a bad thing for the dunk contest?
Because it's a G-Leaguer doing it. We need star power. It's also a bad thing that Modest Buzelis is out there as a dunker. It needs star power.
But that's been an issue for years, though. No,
it has. It has been an issue.
It's
not a new thing. It's a thing since really I was a teenager.
Okay, good. Okay, I just want
to. It's been a thing a long time.
But me personally, I'd rather a G Leaguer come in and jump over a car rather than like what we got in previous years, where someone is jumping over a paper mache airplane and barely even be able to clear, or somebody jumping over a chair like they did in the 90s. I would rather watch that than everything else that I've seen throughout my existence watching, basketball and the dunk contest. I agree with you that All-Star Weekend was a little, in particular, that the All-Star game itself was pretty bad, and so the ratings kind of make sense. But I feel like that to me was a highlight of the weekend, and I was in the city, I was in San Francisco.
Well, that's because it was a paper airplane bar. It's a low bar. That's why it was the highlight of the weekend.
Okay. I believe that Mac McClung in a general sense has had some of the best dunks.
Yeah.
In the last 20, 30 years.
He is a professional dunker. He's an unbelievable dunker. He is. He's unbelievable. I'm not taking that away from him. He's one of the greatest dunkers we've seen.
Okay.
But, so here's the thing. I forget who said this to me. Forgive me, whoever said it. Should the NBA just lean into this more and have, like, lethal shooter be part of the three-point shooting contest? Like, just lean into it more and make these challenges about, like, just go all the way in, where lethal shooter is in the three-point shooting contest against, whoever they end up getting. Like, lean all the way in. And just make it all about kind of these fun types of competitions. I know I'm equating a G-Leaguer with a trainer.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's an influencer,
pretty, trainer, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a pretty steep.
Somebody mentioned that to me at the time, and I was like, interesting.
To say the answer, no, I don't think they should. I think they should be like an athlete within the league. That makes a lot of sense. But I mean, they technically speaking, they had Curry and Sabrina the year before at the three-point contest, and I feel like that was like also highly entertaining. I hear what you're saying about like NBA players should be a part of it. I also kind of just feel like right now we're at a point in time where like how many NBA players in a dunk contest or an All-Star Weekend do we really want to even watch anyway that's going to be hyper entertaining? The only two names that come to my mind, or maybe three, is just Ja and Zion. I think that right there would...
Thompson twins too. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I think that the Thompson twins are super athletic. But then I also kind of think they're like...
You can build them too. Like if the Thompson twins are competing in the dunk contest, that's good.
But do enough people know about the Thompson twins for that to really be a bill? Like there's not enough people pushing the Thompson twins right now.
But they can become that. Like that's the stage to become that.
I think they're also just like in-game dunkers though. Like that was the problem with Sean Kemp. Sure. Like Kemp never won the dunk contest because he's more of an in-game dunker. I think Zion, which he's lost weight, so maybe hopefully next year he keeps it down and maybe it looks a little bit more interesting. Ja has kind of entertained the idea that he might go back in there or might go in there for the first time. I just kind of feel like in a moment in which there probably isn't this laundry list of stars that we want to see in a dunk contest because we've either A, already seen them, or B, like they're just not dunkers, or C, they're just too old. I'm not mad at a couple of years of Mac McClung getting whatever he need to get off. Like, I'm not mad at it at all. I'm not going to sit here and complain about somebody jumping over a car. I'm just not. Or wait, let me ask you, are you team, I don't even know how much time we have, but are you team the NBA is bad because of media coverage, or are you on the other side of like it's just bad because it's bad? Or are you
I don't think the NBA is bad.
Okay, you're in between. Okay, cool.
I think the NBA has more talent than it ever has in my lifetime.
Okay.
I still love watching the NBA. I still love following the NBA.
Okay.
So like for me, no, I don't think it's bad. I just think there's little issues that can improve, especially with the officiating. I think the officiating has always been an issue, but I do think it's worsened. I think the replay reviews are horrific in end game situations where like it's the final minute of a game. We don't need to be standing at the table for 5 minutes. It's like with the Lakers Clippers game, there was a review 30 seconds left in the game, ruining the flow. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I used to be, I am pro review,
I agree.
but at the same time, I'm anti review if it means 3 minutes, 5 minutes, sometimes 6, 7 minutes standing at the table, twiddling your thumbs, figuring it out. It needs to be quicker. I don't know if the NBA needs to have AI or Hawkeye technology, which are the tracking cameras helping out here. If it's something in Secaucus with people in the studio, if that needs more staffing or better staffing, I don't know what the exact solutions are, but I do know it needs to be quicker.
It needs to be quicker. You think the officiating is worse though?
I mean, the officiating's always been bad.
I don't know. In the 2000s, the officiating was so bad we thought referees were gambling on games, and come to find out they were. So I don't know. Like I'm not accusing you, but I'm in agreement with you that like the NBA, this is probably the most talented and most entertaining sport the sport has been in my lifetime, and I grew up watching like Kobe and Duncan and a rest of them in the 2000s, and even I can like openly admit like. They're turning on a random game in the 2000s in contrast to where we are right now. It's not even like, it's night and day. It's not even
the style of play. I mean, Thinking Basketball had that outstanding video where he went through eras of basketball a few weeks back. And it's like true, like just because guys are not taking mid-range as much, they're still taking jumpers as much. It's just 3-pointers outside the arc instead of inside the arc. But Lo, thanks for joining me today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Now joining me to talk about Michigan basketball, Pistons, Spartans, Wolverines, it's Bryce Simon. What's up?
What's up, Kevin? How are you doing? I'm happy to be back. I appreciate you asking me back. That means I didn't do too bad a job. The first time you asked me, the first time it's always like, okay, I must have put some content out there, or I was the only person that said yes, but then the second time it's like, okay, I must have made a good impression. He must think I know what I'm talking about with Detroit Pistons basketball. So I appreciate you having me back on.
No, you did great last time, and I enjoyed our conversation. It was an interesting time for the Pistons because I felt like at the time we recorded that, I was like, man, I feel like we're like a week late. Like I wish we were a week earlier in talking about the Pistons. They're 14-18 at the time. This was New Year's Eve, I think we recorded. They're 14-68 last season. So I'm like, wow, a great story. Feel good Pistons. Since then, they've won over 2/3 of their games. They have a 115.8 offensive rating, 12th in the NBA, a 109.5 defensive rating, 2nd in the NBA, 6.3 net rating, 5th best in the NBA. They've been one of the 5 best teams in the NBA in the calendar year of 2025 ever since that we recorded our podcast, Bryce. The first thing I asked you on that episode was, what's different between these 14-18 Pistons and those 14-68 Pistons? Same question for you here. What's the difference between these Pistons in the new year of 2025 versus the early season Pistons that were 14-18?
So I assumed we would get into this really early, and I don't want to just give the same old Cade Cunningham answer, and he has been incredible. I did all NBA with Sam on Game Theory the other day, and I think Cade is unquestionably for me an all NBA player at this point, especially when you consider injuries. And I think the conversation now is the second team or third team. Let's go somewhere different and let's go to the defense. And the defense in Detroit starts with Asar Thompson. For those who don't know, Asar missed a lot of games to start the year because of a blood clot that showed up at the end of last season. So it, took him a while to get into games. His minutes are still a little bit low, but he is like an all defense level defender, even if he's not going to be a part of that this season. His defense, Isaiah Stewart's defense, a guy we talked about, Jalen Duren, has gotten better. Okay, improvement, right? Growth on the defensive end. JB in general with what he's done just overall has been incredible. But let's start with that because I think it goes away from just the easy Cade answer.
Sure, of course. Like Cade, we talked about him in depth there. He's taken a leap this year. He's taken another leap midseason with even more usage, more on his plate. But defensively, I do think that's the key difference between early season when they're in the bottom half of the NBA defensively versus now top 2 in 2025. And Asar Thompson, Amen Thompson, his twin brother in Houston, has gotten a lot of love, rightfully so, for everything he's done with the Rockets. But Asar Thompson doesn't shoot threes. He offensively, he has his limitations like his brother Amen. But defensively, same thing. Point of attack defense. The dude is an absolute MFer, stopper, constant elite level effort. What have you seen from him, and how is he making that impact for the Detroit Pistons at such a significant level at the point of attack?
So to your point, it's the point of attack defense. This team has nobody else that guards at the point of attack defensively on the perimeter, and he's able to take those matchups. I watched him just make James Harden's life miserable. There's a clip that I have over on the Substack where he picks James Harden up full court. The Clippers don't know what to do. Now, in fairness, Norm Powell and Kawhi weren't playing. It's like at 15 on the shot clock, and Zubac is just standing at 30 feet from the basket like, okay, how are we going to run our offense? Because Asar is denying James Harden the ball. Harden gets pissed, pushes him. They don't call a foul. By the time James Harden touches the ball, Kevin, it's 9 seconds on the shot clock. So that's the disruption that goes beyond just the steals and the deflections and the blocks. And then real quickly, this team is getting out in transition. They're turning defense into offense and they're playing fast. And Asar is the driving force of that with what he's able to do.
Now with Asar, I think a lot of the time people, right or wrong, there's a lot of people who say, well, perimeter defense is overrated. Interior defense is what matters most. Perimeter defense does not impact the opponents in the same way. Do you think with a guy like Asar Thompson, it kind of doesn't kill that argument, but is a strong counterpoint to that with the way he's influenced the Pistons defense ever since he returned?
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation because I've had people throw that at me whenever I've been like, hey, this is my all defense, guys right now. What do you think? And they're like, why don't you have more bigs? And I'm like, I like these versatile wings. I like Amen Thompson. I like Asar Thompson. I like Tamani Kamara. I think I like Jalen Williams and Lou Dort. I think those guys are impactful in what they do. And again, staying on Asar, you have to know where he's at. So my thing on the defensive end is, can you change the calculation of the offense? Can you change what they're going to do, their mindset, their decision-making? Bigs do that all the time, right? Rudy Gobert changes. Victor changes shot decisions in the lane. I think Amen and Asar do the same thing. If you don't know where they're at, they're going to block your shot from behind. They're going to jump a passing lane. They're going to steal it from you. They're going to low man rotate and contest. And again, then they take those things and they go the other direction and drive offense in transition.
And I think also perimeter players, like we talk about rim protectors, the Gobert, Wemby types, they clean up mistakes. They're erased.
Sure.
They erase mistakes and they aid they help the supporting cast on defense with their presence inside. Perimeter players can also help interior bigs too. Asar's presence, I would imagine, is part of the reason why we're seeing Jalen Duren improve in the second half of the season, because at the time of our earlier podcast recording, I listened back this morning, my line was, I've given up. I said, I've given up on Jalen Duren. You talked about there hasn't been as much development. You talked about lack of hand activity, sense of urgency. Has there been differences in Jalen Duren aside from the fact that Asar Thompson is a stopper on the outside, helping steer guys into better positions for him? Is there differences in Duren's abilities in 2025 more so than there was last year?
I would say yes. I would still say they're not the growth that maybe you would want. I don't think you'll turn on a Monday night, a Tuesday night Pistons game, Friday, whenever, and go, man, Jalen Duren is the anchor of this defense. He's just incredible, like anything like that. But if you watch the nuances, he is getting his hand activity in the pocket pass. He is being disruptive with rotations and blocks. He had 5 or 6 the other night on Saturday and against the Nets. And so there is some more of that. There are also times in the ball screen where he still gets his hips completely open and gives up driving lanes. I will say, to your point, Asar navigates ball screens. Dennis Schroeder navigates ball screens. Like, those are 2 guys that weren't there at the start of the year that do that pretty well. Like, if there's one thing Dennis does, it's at the point of attack. That's his best thing defensively, at least. And that does help make your bigs better.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about Isaiah Stewart? You had mentioned him even before mentioning Duren earlier. Obviously, he's not the starting 5 for the Pistons, but the Pistons have been very good with him defensively on the floor.
Yeah, he's the second best defender on the team, in my opinion. I think it's Asar, and then I think it's Isaiah Stewart. And his ability to contest at the rim is incredible. And he's very strong, so he doesn't give up ground. Somebody gets to his body and they try to give him that little bump to create space. Stu doesn't give up any ground in those situations. And then for somebody who's 6'8"-ish, but has these crazy long arms, has enough vertical pop, even though he's not the bounciest of guys. He just times things up. He had one on Jokic the other night that was incredible. Jokic spun off Tobias Harris. Stu met it at the rim. And then again, it immediately led to transition, a Malik Beasley 3-point make. We should probably talk about Malik at some point as well. Not when we're talking defense as much, but Isaiah Stewart has really settled into this role off the bench, which is what I always thought he was going to be. I didn't think he was a starting center. He definitely wasn't a starting 4-man, but as this guy off the bench, he gives this team really good minutes.
I think with a guy like Isaiah Stewart, it's you got to credit him with his approach as well, because his minutes have been sliced. He was a 30-plus minute per game guy for last season and maybe the year before that. Below 20 minutes per game now for the Pistons. He doesn't really even shoot threes anymore. His role's changed a bit, and he's embraced it. And I think there's certain guys. I remember at the beginning of the season, had Dane Moore on talking about Julius Randle. And I said, this is before the season. I was like, man, I would hope Julius Randle is willing to come off the bench. He's like, hell no chance. And it's true. I know there's no chance. He's just not willing to be a elite 6-man bruising bench units. And you can argue that he's right to be the starter. But I think there's certain guys it'd be nice to see them embrace a bench role. Isaiah Stewart is a better player for your basketball team when more is less with him. He's just one of those types of guys.
And it's okay. And here's what's finally going to be awesome is this team is going to play in the playoffs. I think, I hope, it looks like it.
Yes.
Not
I think. Yeah, listen, the Pistons are going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs, right?
I agree.
Not a question.
Listen, I watched this team lose a lot of games for 4 years. It's hard to get it out of my mouth without a caveat. I can't just say it without being I think, I hope, I'm pretty sure. So, yes, they're going to play in the playoffs. And I always said Isaiah Stewart would be an important playoff player. I think his game fits. Now, this was also when he was stretching the floor a little bit more than what he does now. That's been my biggest frustration with his game this year is whether him or JB or whoever, the organization I think decided this isn't an important aspect of his game anymore. But I think the defense will be. He's got a little bit of switchability more than you would think. And yes, he just embraced this role. And what's funny is the fan base was kind of down on Stu. They were eh. And then now they love him because he's in this role that he's accepted and really excelling in.
And Malik Beasley. The dude, he's 9.4 3-pointers per game, 42.7%. He's been one of the best shooters in the entire NBA this season. The dude was a major steal. He just flat out was. You think about what he's been the last 3-4 years playing with Minnesota than his year with Milwaukee. I think he's better than ever right now with what we're seeing with Detroit now at 28 years old.
He is tied for Anthony Edwards at time of recording for 3-point makes in the NBA.
Crazy.
And I did a breakdown the other day, so shameless plug. If you guys want to check it out, I think it's pretty good stuff. I'm biased, but over on the Motor City Hoops Substack. And I went and watched his last 100 3-point makes because I didn't have time to watch all 244 or whatever it was. And I just kind of showed the themes of what he was able to do. And it's in transition, as I've mentioned multiple times, but then it's off screens, and then it's off DHOs, and then it's relocation, and then there's a sprinkle of off the dribble with him. He is the perfect example of what you're talking about with Isaiah Stewart. Here is my role off the bench. My job is to shoot as many open threes and sometimes even contested threes as I can get and do it with confidence no matter the result. And he is flourishing in that. And it's been exactly what this team needed. I mean, I think there's probably an argument that he's their second best offensive player with Jaden Ivey out. He's their second leading scorer by almost 3 points per game.
I mean, you kind of nailed it there with like Beasley. It's not like he's just a spot-up guy. It's the variety of ways that he's able to unleash those threes. Full-on sprints and transition. He's not just a standstill guy. He can do it off of movement. He can be a relocator in the half court. That requires IQ and a sense spatial awareness.
Yes.
The footwork. I mean, like he can do it from different areas. It's not like he's good from just one side of the court and not the other. Like it's just heat all over, regardless of the play type, regardless of the spacing. And like he's one of the big reasons why, like you said, their offense has been so much better. Cade, we have to talk a little bit about Cade here. One of the specific things I want to hit on with you. We know the scoring, we know the playmaking ability. Dude's been awesome. One of the specific things I want to hit. Back in December, we talked about the at-rim finishing is the key for him taking a leap, going from top 30-ish level player to all-NBA level player. The numbers on paper aren't significantly better now compared to earlier in the season. But have you seen progress from him in that department, or has he made enough of a leap in other areas of his game where it's like, you know what? It's okay that he might not be an elite at-rim finisher SGA style right now.
Yeah, I think there's been baby steps with that. I mean, you think about the Hawks game where he just had one of the best first halves you'll see from an offensive player. And that was actually the 3-point jumper. I think coming out of All-Star break, his confidence has been in the 3-point shot has been really impressive. And I'll be honest, I was a little interested to see because he did the 3-point competition. I'm like, okay, is this going to change his shot in any way? Because prepping for that competition is very different than especially the type of 3-pointers that Cade Cunningham takes, which are mostly off the dribble. I would say at the rim, you're seeing slight growth and improvement and understanding. I highlighted like he beats the Hawks off the bounce and he tries to do a right-hand finish on the left side, and Vit Krejci gets him with the Krejci. Sorry,
I used to watch a Bruins hockey player with the last name Krejci, so that's why I know it.
Krejci gets the block on it. And then a couple possessions later in the game, I think it's a different defender, but he has a similar situation. Maybe it was the next game, whatever. He goes, he's like, okay, I need to finish with my left. I think what I talked with you about was it doesn't seem like he always has a full understanding or appreciation for how good these guys are defensively, the recovery abilities to get steals, to dig, to block, even guys that are coming at him in front of him. I think he just has to continue to figure that out a little, but his size and his strength have helped him improve around the rim as well.
It's the cherry on top at this point, like the way everything else has progressed for him. He's a good defensive player as a high usage guy on offense.
Yep.
He improved as a shooter. He's a good mid-range guy. He's a great playmaker. Cade's awesome. All NBA this year, I think, is a fair argument for him. And so you have the Pistons now in this situation where they're currently the 6th seed. And in all likelihood, they're going to be the 4, the 5, or the 6. They'd have to really start collapsing to fall to 7 or 8, which is currently where Miami or Orlando are. So 4, 5, or 6 seed. That means in all likelihood, their first round opponent will be either the Knicks, the Bucks, or the Pacers. Of those 3 teams, which one do you feel most confident that the Pistons could beat in the first round?
Oh, wow. So I would immediately throw out the Bucks, I think, just because kind of one of my philosophies in the playoffs is if you have the best player in the series, you have at least a fighting chance. And I just don't think, as much as I love Cade, I don't think you can go into a Bucks series and expect him to be the best players in that, even in a single series against Giannis. Like,
totally fair.
I don't think the Pistons have the best matchups for Giannis. Like Asar, that's not who he's going to match up with, right? Like you're really going to rely on Jalen Duren, who Giannis gets in foul trouble. You're really going to rely on Isaiah Stewart in that scenario, even though Stewart is a good defender. So I don't think the Bucks are the answer. Pacers are interesting interesting. The thing with both of these final two teams is the Pistons really struggle with stretch bigs, and both of those teams have stretch bigs.
Yep.
I think the team I actually would like them to play is the Knicks, just because like I want to see what it would look like. I would love to see. The other thing I will say is Andrew Nembhard gave Cade a lot of trouble. Like he really got up in him.
Nembhard's a good defender, dude.
Really good defender. Yeah, like if there was 3 teams on all NBA defense, I think he would be third team for me. Like I definitely tried to mention him yesterday whenever we were talking about that. So I would say the Knicks just because I've seen them really struggle to guard Cade Cunningham. And I was just watching their game today against the Heat. They struggled mightily to guard Tyler Hero for most of that game. And I think Asar is the type of defender that if you're going to give Jalen Brunson trouble, he's the type of defender that could potentially do it.
I think that's a smart way to frame it there with the matchups. And that's the thing with the Knicks. Like it's going to be, are they going to be able to stop anybody? Are they going to be good enough defensively?
Yeah.
I mean, for them to make any type of run at all, including past the first round. I mean, can you imagine the Knicks? They have this big offseason, big acquisitions, and then they lose in the first round to the Pistons.
Yeah. I mean, I think the smart answer is the Pacers, right? Like, I would say they're the team that I trust.
The Pacers have been really good, though, since the NBA Cup in middle of December. They've been great.
And I will say, like, there's this chippiness between those two teams where they don't like each other, where like you could see the Knicks overlooking the Pistons in the first round, right? And like maybe dropping a game or two before they really like lock in. That's not going to happen with Indiana in Detroit. Like Indiana is going to be locked in. The other, this would be interesting. I think the Pistons' biggest defensive weakness is their off-ball defense. They get backdoored all the time. They mess up split actions. Like the Warriors would cook them with that stuff. The Nuggets obviously just destroyed them. I feel like the Pacers probably move and cut off the ball in the half court a little better than Knicks. Maybe I'm off there, but that would be my thought process with that also.
I mean, ultimately, I don't think I'm picking the Pistons in any of those first round series, but they've played themselves into a situation where they have a shot to make it super, super competitive. And that is a unfathomable thing that you would have said a year ago at this time, that in a year, maybe they can win a first round series.
Well,
so, like,
real quick,
awesome.
I think what we're going to see is they're going to, whoever they play is going to put 2 on Cade for the entire game. And we're going to see, okay, Jalen Duren, can you consistently make the right short roll decisions for 4 quarters? Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., can you guys make shots? Asar, we're literally going to stare at you at the 3-point line. What are you going to do? Are you going to try to take shots? Or are you going to try to attack space? And this is why making the playoffs is so important. I don't care if they get swept. And to your point, like I wouldn't pick them in any of these either, but I want them to go play like the Knicks, which would be really fun, interesting matchups. Is Asar as good as we think defensively, or does Brunson cook him? Can Duren stop Karl-Anthony Towns from hitting 5 threes a game, trailing in transition? Can Cade handle OG's physicality, or them putting 2 on the ball and then everybody else? Like, it's time to see those things, and those give you answers for the future.
Bingo, 100%. I mean, that playoff experience is very valuable, and the Pistons have lost enough, right? I mean, like an extra lottery pick doesn't hurt, but at the same time, you'd rather get the playoff experience and start installing that winning culture. Speaking about draft prospects, let's stick within the state of Michigan.
Yep.
Let's talk about Michigan Wolverines Jr. Danny Wolf, a 7-foot point guard, averaging 12.4 points, 9.7 boards, 3.7 assists, 1.4 blocks this season. 21 years old in May. Might be a bit generous to call him a point guard, but he's a love him or hate him prospect. You talk to people around the league, just be like, I love this dude. 7-foot guy who can handle the ball, behind the back passes, step back, half spin, turn, step back threes. And then you talk to people who are like, the dude sucks on defense. He's not going to be able to do what he does on offense. So which bucket are you in, Bryce? Love him or hate him with Danny Wolf?
Yeah, so this is one where, like, I feel like a lot of people have moved him into like their top 20, like middle of the first round type of process. I'm more of like into the first round, top of the second with Danny Wolf. And listen, I see it, right? Like you turn a game on and you're like, 7-footer that moves. Oh, he's handling the pick and
another
roll.
Big doughy white guy. Yeah, the next Jokic.
Yeah, not quite Jokic, but this is interesting, and especially in an NBA where it's like, how big can you be while still being skilled? I'll be honest. I'm fascinated to get your answer on this. Do you think he actually shoots it in the NBA? Because I know what the numbers are. And listen, I think we probably learned our lesson with Tyrese Halliburton with mechanics, but I have a hard time buying the mechanics of Danny Wolf's jumper to think he's really going to be the level of shooter he needs to be to go along with everything else offensively. And as you mentioned, what is the defense even going to be?
Yeah. I mean, the mechanics, strange. Definitely a question mark, but also just the touch. I mean, he's a 61% guy from the free throw line. He's never been a great shooter, including prior to his transfer to Michigan. And this season, we're seeing the drop off. His first 17 games, he was at 39% from three. His last 12 games, he's at 27%, which is far closer to his career college averages. So, like with him, I look at him, I joke about Jokic. It's more like, could he be Kelly Olynyk with more flair, like more of a handle, right? Olynyk needs to shoot. Olynyk's a shooter.
It's very funny. In my notes here, I had a name here. I said without athleticism and vertical pop, which is a huge factor, which makes him...
Which name? Who?
Which makes him Kelly Olynyk. I will not say that name. Because
come on! No. Why? It's thrown out there. Which name without athleticism?
No, because people will cook me for it. It was just like it was the archetype of like
I had Killian ranked number one.
Hey, he's back in the league.
Well,
didn't have a great
kind
game
of. He's out now. He had a 10-day and
he had two.
Now he's out again.
So I put like is the archetype Larry Markkinen? Is that what people are gonna think he can be? Right? Like
without athleticism.
Yeah,
Lowry's a good athlete.
Lowry, like you want to top block Lowry, he's gonna go back door and he's gonna dunk on your head. And he's not the shooter Lowry is either. But it's like, is this the idea of a 7-footer that can like play on the wing and do all of these things? And I said he's not those things, which is vitally important. So then does he just become quote unquote just Kelly Olynyk? Kelly Olynyk's had a great career, but the other thing is Kelly Olynyk can shoot, and I'm not sure I believe Danny Wolf can shoot. And then it's like, where do you play him defensively? Like, is he going to be able to run around on the perimeter and keep up? I don't know that he can do that. Like, if you play him as a 5, you can play him in drop. Like, he's not going to be successful in drop coverage in the NBA. So it's a very, I put it here. To me, it's theoretical over practical, and that's really interesting. But to me, I don't take that in the top 20, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I have not done my rankings yet. I'll be doing my full rankings when the draft guide drops later this month. But I think late in the 20s feels about right for me.
That's where I have him.
With him. Jase Richardson at Michigan State. One thought I can't help but shake with him. First of all, 11 points per game this season, 3 boards, 1.9 assists, 39% from threes. A freshman, the son of Jason Richardson. Former NBA player, had a great career, 2-time dunk contest winner. Jason Richardson, you see him sometimes there with the highlights on the sidelines watching his son, Jase Richardson, who's 6'3". I can't help but shake the thought, Bryce. Jase Richardson could end up a better NBA player than Dylan Harper. Okay. I really believe that. I really believe there's a chance of that. I'm not willing to say I'm going to put 6'3", 185-pound point guard ahead of Dylan Harper, who's 6'5", 6'6", over 200 pounds, and having a really good year for Rutgers. But there's a chance that Jase Richardson, who's 42% on catch and shoot threes, 61% on mid-range pull-ups, 32% on dribble jumper threes, 72% at the rim, 87% from the free throw. And there's a chance that guy ends up a top 3, 4, 5 player in this draft class. Like, he's 6'3". Yes, you'd rather he be 6'5", 6'6". Of course you'd rather that, but Donovan Mitchell's 6'3". CJ McCollum's 6'3". Jared McCain is 6'3", who would have been the rookie of the year in all likelihood if he never got hurt. Bradley Beal's 6'3". Like, Jase Richardson has great feel and touch, and I don't know. I just think he's going to be freaking good, dude. And I want to rank him higher than I probably should. So that's my thought on Jase Richardson. Maybe he ends up better than Dylan Harper. Maybe.
This wasn't as fun as I thought. Like, I thought I was going to have to like try to pitch you on Jase Richardson. I didn't realize we were going to be in the same wavelength here. I also want to say,
Am I crazy? Am I crazy though? Am I crazier than you?
No, I think we're about the same height.
So you think
not same height? Are we the same height? How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Oh, we're not the same height then.
How tall are you?
6'6".
It must be nice. See, you have great seats at every concert.
I haven't been to a music concert in my life. I don't.
Okay. Really?
No, like one maybe when I was a kid.
Wow.
No, we're in the same
Bryce.
realm with
Okay.
Jase Richardson. I also I appreciate you like calling yourself out about Killian Hayes. I feel like big names will be like, oh, try to like, oh no, I'm always perfect. I'm always so I always appreciate people who hold their own receipts.
I'm gonna get plenty wrong. I'm gonna get plenty right. You're always gonna get more credit for your losses than your wins.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get credit for the draft dubs I've had. It's fine. It's just here's the thing, right? Like when it comes to having a thought or an opinion, like you're never going to get credited when you're right as much as when you're wrong, which is perfectly okay. I remember people's F-ups more than I remember their hits as well. It's just the way it goes.
Yes. Someday somebody will remember mine. Like, you said Danny Wolf was the Lauri Markkanen archetype? Like, who are you? No.
Or he'll become a superstar and people will think you're a dumbass.
Yes, exactly. Like with Jalen Wells, who I did not have in my top 45 or something like that, and is probably going to win Rookie of the Year. So listen, Jase Richardson is just an archetype that I believe NBA teams look for. Like, not only can he play on the ball like you're talking about, I think he has like real off-ball secondary playmaking ability too. Like, he lets the game come to him. You mentioned the catch and shoot. I just think in this league of jumbo primary initiators, you have all of these names that are bigger, and there's some smaller ones still, but you have Cade, you have Luka, you have all of these guys. I think teams are always like, what was one of the biggest free agent signings of the summer that actually hasn't panned out? But Orlando was, you got to go get KCP, this guy that can really shoot, can really defend. Like, I feel like teams are always looking for those type of players. I think Jase Richardson has that. I can think he can play off of those type of guys. I think he can navigate ball screens. I think he makes rotations defensively, like all of that stuff, along with the ability to shoot, process the game, the touch, the passing, all of it. Like, you look at his numbers and it doesn't blow you away. I just think he's a really, really good basketball player who knows what happens when he gets a little more usage and freedom and space and all of that.
He's just so fluid, man. Like, it's just all so smooth. Everything he does. And like the IQ, the feel, the way he snakes with the ball out of a ball screen. I mean, I just feel like he's just got it. And Dylan Harper, great prospect. I will have Dylan Harper ranked number 2 in all likelihood when my draft guide drops later this month. But there's a chance that this guy, Dylan Harper, who elite at-rim finisher, but only 30% on dribble jumper 2s, only 29% on dribble jumper 3s, 74% from the free throw line. And there's a chance that this point guard who's had touch, shooting questions continues to have questions about his jumper into the years to come. And that there's a chance Jase Richardson, who, seems to be more of a high-level shooter, ends up the better guard.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
that seems fair, right?
I was lower on Dylan Harper coming into the season. He just has ended up being so productive. And then some of the other guys haven't, obviously Traore fell way out of this top 5 conversation.
Edgecombe, rising.
Yeah, Edgecombe coming back now. Ace, it seems like another guy depends on I think he's very much in the top 5 for everybody, but some are like a little less excited about it than others. Kasparis has obviously moved up. But yeah, Harper's just been so productive. But yeah, I have questions like, can he really shoot it? I think it comes out flat at times. I don't think he's like a crazy twitch athlete. So when you get against bigger, stronger, more athletic players, does this body control and build, is that enough? And it may be enough, but to your point, it also may not be enough. All of that. I've also wondered this. Dylan Harper and Ace Baylor are 2-3 on my board. That team is awful. So is it like, I've had a hard time reconciling how bad they are if I think these are 2 of the 3 best prospects in the draft. I've really struggled with that, even though it hasn't forced me to move them.
I feel exactly the same way. And there is a chance before June. Look, the college season is going to end this month for those guys. And, it's only going to extend until April for a couple teams. But, rankings and evaluation and intel gathering, all that continues in April, May, and June. And I think for those guys, particularly Dylan Harper, when it comes to shooting the ball and pre-draft workouts and all that, you open gym shooting, it matters to the extent, like the extreme example. I remember hearing stories of Markelle Fultz where it's like, he sucks at open gym at shooting. Like, something's wrong with his shot here. And the Sixers still took him number 1 after trading up, but perhaps they should have adjusted like Boston did, deciding, you know what, we're out. Let's trade down and get Tatum at 3 or whoever best player available is there. If Dylan Harper is shooting the hell out of it in pre-draft workouts and showing a willingness to, maybe he tweaked his mechanics slightly, whatever it is, and he shows that ability to be a sponge, that will increase your confidence in him. But if he's struggling to shoot the ball, those workouts do matter, and that intel you get does matter. So with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, I'm not locked in with them there. I would expect that Dylan Harper stays at number 2, but I have no idea what I'm going to end up doing at number 3. I'm just not sure yet.
Yeah, I mean, to me, tiering it out, I have Cooper in his own tier. Like, yes. I have Cooper saying all 30 teams would take Cooper Flag. And then I have those other guys in a tier where it's like, I don't have enough separation between them. If you tell me Viche goes number 2 because, the team that he's getting drafted by already has a point guard and this dynamic two-way wing, and VJ just makes more sense to slot in between them, then I would understand it. And that's the other thing I've started to understand. I've only done NBA draft stuff for a couple years, done the Pistons a little bit longer, is there's a lot of stuff that to be successful drafting is information I'm never privy to. Those interviews are important. Hearing those kids' answers to certain questions, watching them work out, not at the combine. Sometimes that's true.
But yes. Then players, there's busts every year.
That's true.
All the intel in the world, all you can get 3 hours interviews, and
this is true.
His mother and his guidance counselor and all these people, and you can still get it wrong.
Well, and
get it wrong.
Like money changes people, right? Like it's part, not just in the basketball, in life, or can change people. Shouldn't say it does. Listen, I was watching before we started. I was watching that Heat versus Knicks game. Khalil Ware is a perfect example. I'm sure people who don't do NBA draft stuff look at Khalil Ware like, you guys were all dumb. Like, why did you have Khalil Ware so low? And it's like, because I watched him from North Little Rock High School have quote unquote motor issues. And then at Oregon, it was a question. If you would have guaranteed me he was going to play this hard in the NBA, then I would have had him ranked higher, because yes, all of the other tools were always there. But to your point, does an interview always give you that answer? Does a workout always give you that answer? You have no idea. What if he wasn't in Heat culture? What if he ended up somewhere else? Would it be different? We don't always know.
Yep. Situation and opportunity and environment are pivotal in determining the success and failure of draft prospects. Also in life, I mean, like, it's just the truth. Like, in every situation, like, you might decide to go to one school versus another school in college, and it can change your path. And sometimes it might put you in the same place. It just might be a different journey to get there. But like, I think for a lot of these players, like Khalil Ware, what if he didn't transfer to Indiana?
Sure.
I mean, like, who knows? Maybe he ends up drafted in the 2nd round and he's buried on the bench somewhere and just never gets the opportunity. And he's playing overseas in a couple of years. You don't know. You just don't know a lot of the time with these players.
And to be clear, I don't know that every player is built for Heat culture. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound like Miami's the only place a rookie can go be successful. It's just, to your point, personalities, coaching styles, stuff like, even really, I consider myself to be a good person. I clashed with my JUCO coach, who I love to this day. Like, we talk to this day. We text on weekly, every couple of weeks. But I left there pissed, and like, we were not getting along because I didn't love his coaching style and some decisions he had made about my teammates and some stuff like that. So personalities can clash and things like that, and so it sucks that sometimes it comes down to that, but this is the game. And to your point, it's not just basketball. It's not just sports. It's every aspect of our world. So,
well, Bryce, thank you for joining me. That's 6'6" Bryce Simon.
I wasn't trying to like flex. I didn't mean to get in there. Like, it just kind of happened. I promise it happened organically. If you guys missed that part during the show,
I'm more comfortable on airplanes. Okay, I get that.
I avoid those things at all costs. I'm 6'6". Like, you can't give me the exit row. You're 5'10". Like, you don't see me. My head is dragging on the top of the plane as I walk in. You don't want to give me the exit row? No, it's fine. It's whatever.
Thank you, Bryce. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Big thank you to Bryce Simon, Lowe, and Jared Weiss for joining me on today's episode of The Kevin O'Connor Show. Please give us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify, a thumbs up on YouTube. It really does help us out. Thanks to Stone and Mike for producing. Hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll be back again later on with Tom Haberstroh talking more NBA.